18th, 1815. For 11 hours, 200,000 men had fought one of the most intense, bitter clashes in history, the Battle of Waterloo. Allied forces, led by the Duke of Wellington, had achieved the unthinkable, the defeat of the legendary Emperor of France, Napoleon Bonaparte. This was a remarkable victory, which ended more than 20 years of war. Was this success down to luck, skill, or mistakes made by his infamous opponent? Using the latest scientific techniques and historical analysis, Battlefield Detectives investigates what gave Wellington the edge at Waterloo. Waterloo was Napoleon's final battle, the moment when his dreams of a European empire were forever shattered. Bonaparte's rise to power had grown out of the chaos of the French Revolution and had culminated in him crowning himself Emperor of France. His armies had terrorized Europe. Great Britain and her allies wanted to bring his reign to an end. The Allied army was led by the Duke of Wellington.
Waterloo was the one time that the two greatest commanders of the age met on the field of battle. And Napoleon clearly was, for years, the greatest commander in all of Europe. But the Duke of Wellington was seen as another great general, that there really is something in this man that none of the other commanders on the continent have had.
Wellington was successful. Wellington wasn't beaten. You knew that if Wellington was actually on the battlefield, your chances of defeating the French were very, very high indeed.
But he'd never fought Napoleon Bonaparte. Napoleon was an emperor, a head of state, a military genius. He had commanded armies 500,000 strong.
On the morning of the 18th of June, 1815, Napoleon was extraordinarily complacent. He thought it was all done and dusted. At breakfast, he was bragging about what a wonderful day it was going to be. But now, Wellington was up against somebody in the big league, and Wellington was going to be creamed.
The emperor's ego was clouding his judgment. Wellington was well prepared for this showdown.
Wellington understood military matters perhaps better than a lot of his contemporaries because he had studied them. He spent time learning what it takes to fight and win a campaign. And so he planned the battle in great detail before the first shot was ever fired.
Wellington was a meticulous planner. He commissioned soldiers to draw a map of the region south of Brussels, the capital of Belgium, an area vulnerable to invasion by the French. At the Royal Engineers Museum in Chatham, England, curator Rebecca Cheney examined the original map of the area drawn by Wellington's engineers.
This was the actual map that was used by the Duke of Wellington. It shows settlements, it shows key roadways. Some of the smaller little figures here, you can see 3s and 4s defining the height of various points. And you can really see clearly the ridges on which the battle was fought.
The map enabled Wellington to plan the battle before a single shot had been fired. And there's some important evidence that reveals his tactics.
These pencil lines here are thought to have been drawn by the Duke of Wellington the day before the battle. Here he's showing his Chief of Staff where he wants the British line to go. I would like to think that this map gave Wellington the edge over Napoleon. The Royal Engineers had done their job well. They'd been out there, they'd scouted the area, they produced something that was practical for him to use and really did show him the lie of the land.
What was it about the land that made it a good location for Wellington's army? Author and military historian Major Gordon Corrigan visits the battlefield to investigate why Wellington chose to fight Napoleon at Waterloo.
Wellington was a master of terrain. Before the Battle of Waterloo, Wellington had looked at all sorts of positions. He'd been here since March. He'd looked at every possible approach that the French might make.
The battlefield was on the main road to Brussels, a vital position to defend. And there was another significant benefit to fighting the battle here.
Wellington always tried to use ridges so that he could hide his infantry behind them. That gave them protection, and of course it meant that the enemy couldn't see exactly where they were. Why did he select this particular one? Well, it was long enough to get all his army onto it, and it was pretty difficult for the French to outflank it. So it had everything he wanted.
Wellington knew that Napoleon would take the battle to him. He wanted the natural geography of the land to work for, not against, his army. Wellington was worried. He had 20,000 fewer soldiers. Many of them were inexperienced in battle.
Wellington's army wasn't all British. In fact, the British were a minority. The rest of Wellington's army was made up of Dutch, Belgians, minor German states. It was an absolute ragtag and bobtail of an army.
Napoleon had one of the best armies he had ever commanded, mainly comprised of veterans. How did Wellington make up for the huge disparity in both the quality and quantity of his soldiers?
Wellington knows that his army is not large enough, not skillful enough, not well trained enough to fight Napoleon by itself.
Wellington needed help. The Prussians were an important ally. Their army was 9 miles away from the battlefield at Wavre.
Wellington's got 70,000 men. The French have got 90,000, but there are 102,000 Prussians. Even one corps arriving is going to tip the balance numerically in Wellington's favor.
Could the Prussians be relied upon to turn up and take on Napoleon?
The commander of the Prussian army was Marshal Blucher. He was 72 years old. He was a very experienced soldier. He hated Frenchmen, and Napoleon in particular. He wanted to kill lots of Frenchmen. If he could kill Napoleon, that would be even better.
By mid-morning, Wellington received news that the Prussian army was on its way. If he could hold out, then he would have the extra troops he needed to beat Napoleon. Assistance came from an unexpected quarter. Napoleon, convinced that victory was inevitable, delayed his opening attack. He did not realize that this increased the chances of the Prussians arriving in time to fight him. The French eventually opened fire in the late morning. They attacked Hougomont, a walled chateau and farmhouse. It was a key building on the battlefield. It protected the western end of Wellington's line and was so important it was garrisoned by some of his best troops, British guardsmen.
It was absolutely clear to Wellington that he who held Hougomont would actually hold the right flank of the battlefield. So Hougomont had to be held at all costs.
Former soldier and military historian Jonathan Gillespie Payne has a hunch that holding on to Hougomont could swing the whole battle in Wellington's favor. The defensive preparations taken here would have been crucial.
Hougomont is actually closer to the French lines than it was to the Allied lines. Very, very exposed. However, despite that, it was a strong natural fortification.
Wellington visited twice before the start of the battle, personally supervising the reinforcement. What measures did Wellington's men take to help them defend Hougomont?
They're going to require firing platforms the whole way along here in order to stand up and shoot over the top of the walls.
Although no firing platforms remain, evidence of another defensive measure is visible.
All the way along this wall are loopholes. Now, these would have been cut by infantryers using bayonets. These are at different heights along the wall, and in this particular case, the soldier would have been in a crouching, kneeling position to be able to fire through here.
As the French charged forward, they would have been faced with mass fire from above the walls and through these loopholes.
It was a case of firing into mass ranks of blue. Any Frenchman that got this far, of course, he had to climb over this and would have invariably suffered a bayonet through the throat. So a major obstacle for the French here.
Wellington's choice of battlefield, his strong leadership, and securing the commitment of Blücher's Prussian army were key factors in his defeat of the French emperor. But how significant was the fight for Hougoumont? Thousands of French troops were being drawn into a fight that was only ever planned to be a minor diversion. If Wellington was to stand any chance of winning the battle, it was crucial that he held this position.
Successful investing. At T. Rowe Price, it's about more than just hitting home runs. It's about a consistent, steady approach, year after year. For each 1, 5, and 10-year period, over 65% of our funds beat their Lipper average. Low-cost mutual funds from T. Rowe Price. Invest with confidence. Request a complete prospectus or profile with investment objectives, risks, fees, expenses, and other information to read and consider carefully before investing.
Oh, there's no place like home for the
Come to Lowe's, where there's a store within a store with amazing holiday values. You'll find festive new decorations you won't find anywhere else, as well as a huge selection of quality pre-lit trees. Even new inflatable outdoor decorations that only Lowe's has. So come to Lowe's, where you'll save more this holiday season.
Sweet home.
What does America need right now?
I bought an assurance from Dodge.
What would that be?
Gas and scheduled maintenance for 2 years.
A 60,000-mile limited warranty.
Engine, transmission, oil changes. They're all covered.
What does it mean to you?
I can fill up my tank without emptying my wallet.
Scheduled maintenance is taken care of.
Gas, maintenance, warranty.
What else is there?
It's our Miles of Freedom plan. Now till the end of the year, get 2 years of gas and scheduled maintenance and a 5-year or 60,000-mile limited warranty on a great selection of 05 and 06 models. It's all taken care of.
You put your body under stress with exercise and just the pace of everyday living. Muscles and joints tighten up. Now you can soothe away tension and fatigue with the Shiatsu massaging cushion from Homedics. The deep kneading action is just like a Shiatsu massage in your own home. In fact,
makes me feel human again.
It's so good that Consumers Digest has given the SPM 200 a Best Buy award.
Wandering eyes off your laptop. Reassuring, removable 3M privacy filters. Now you see it, now they don't. Find yours at 3mprivacyfilter.com.
Hurt in a car wreck?
Spokesperson for Jim Adler.
Good news is you may have a large cash award coming.
The bad news is the insurance company wants to keep your settlement.
Spokesperson for Jim Adler.
You call Jim Adler now. He'll work hard to get you as much as he can, as fast as he can.
I'm Jim Adler, the tough, smart lawyer. I'll fight for better benefits, faster payments with fewer runarounds for you.
The good news is that help is just a phone call away. Call Jim Adler now at 214-320-1111. Free home or hospital visit.
Code Green. I think I've lost him.
Hey, haven't I seen you before?
You sure have. Look out!
My car! It's too late to report my claim now.
Don't you have Esurance?
I do.
At Esurance, you can report your claim 24/7, online or on the phone. Always fast and friendly. You'll be back on the road in no time. Duty calls. If you're on the go, you've got to have Esurance.
Save on 24/7 claim service at Esurance.com or call today 1-888-ESURANCE.
Behind the most enigmatic smile of all time lies the world of a mysterious genius. Da Vinci Decoded. Sunday night at 9, 8 Central, as only the History Channel can bring you.
June 18th, 1815. Two huge armies faced each other at the Battle of Waterloo. Thousands of French soldiers were committed to an attack on the stronghold of Hougoumont. They had expected to meet little resistance, to take the buildings easily. But the Duke of Wellington's men held on against all the odds. How did they do this? Battlefield detectives commissioned a team from the University of Salford, England, to use the very latest techniques to create a virtual reality model of Hougoumont, a revolutionary way of assessing the strength of this fortification. Professor George Heritage and Kim Foster have come to Waterloo. They will lead two teams who will rebuild a full-scale virtual Hougoumont brick by brick.
The 3D laser scanner is able to capture 10 million data points in a matter of minutes and is revolutionary in terms of the way that we can scan the landscape. You know, we can cover large areas very, very quickly. And there is no other instrument available at the moment which allows us to do that.
Heritage is building a three-dimensional mesh on which Foster will paste the textures and details of Hougoumont.
That's great. The 3D laser scanner data will actually provide us with a skeleton of Hougoumont, which then we'll colour in.
Attention to detail is everything. Not only will Foster recreate the textures and materials used to build Hougoumont, she's taking into account time of day, time of year, and the weather on the day of the battle.
We'll overlay all the photographs onto this skeleton, and it basically brings the whole site back to life.
Their model will provide a unique insight into Wellington's defensive tactics and the factors that made Hougoumont a natural stronghold. But how were these buildings threatened on the day of the battle? French troops were doing everything they could to overwhelm Wellington's men, shooting at soldiers firing from walls, windows, and loopholes. But what they needed was real firepower. The French had fantastically powerful and accurate 12-pound cannons. Why didn't Napoleon deploy these at Hougoumont?
What the French should have done was bring up 1 or 2 12-pounders. They would have blasted great holes in the walls, and all then that would have been necessary would have been a rush by the French infantry, and the battle would have been over.
Most French artillery were deployed on the eastern side of the battlefield. So the French used another type of cannon, a howitzer. Smaller and lighter, the howitzers had a distinct advantage over the heavier 12-pound cannons. At a military test facility in England, Lieutenant Colonel Simon West of the Royal Artillery has brought in a howitzer for test firing.
Now, this is a 19th century howitzer, just like the ones used by Wellington's army, and indeed the French. The howitzer was a very versatile weapon. Because of its ability to fire either in the high angle or the low angle, you could always engage the enemy over any type of terrain. Today we're going to demonstrate the howitzer's versatility by firing it at an elevation similar to that fired at Waterloo.
Confirm range clear.
Range clear.
Stand by. Firing.
Wow! Fantastic. That's the first time that gun has fired in 150 years.
The high-speed camera shows the direction of the howitzer's fire as it leaves the barrel. This steep angle gave it the capability to fire over obstacles. Both the French and the British deployed howitzers at Hougoumont, and both sides faced a problem. Soldiers had to fire over the walled chateau and the wood to the south of the complex, trying to hit targets that they couldn't see. But the British found a way of overcoming these difficulties. West demonstrates what made Wellington's howitzers more effective. The rifle operates on the same principle as artillery. It can fire a single shot, in this case one bullet, at a target.
Fantastic.
The shockwave caused by the bullet hitting the clay target creates a sizable hole. Although the impact is impressive, it's confined to one area.
Now this was the sort of effect that was caused by a single solid shot firing into lines of enemy troops. Rather than solid shot, the howitzers were firing this. This is a shell. And inside here was a fill of gunpowder and a time fuse, and after it had flown through the air, the whole shell would burst and produce large fragments.
Exploding shell was used by both sides. It was lethal to any troops in the vicinity. But the British had secretly developed something far deadlier.
There was a gunner subaltern called Henry Shrapnel who discovered that if you mixed metal balls in with the gunpowder inside the shell, you could have additional effect. Now, this secret weapon had been around for 15 years. I say secret because it was still unknown to the French.
Shotgun cartridges contain many small pellets. When the gun is fired, it produces a similar effect to shrapnel, exploding from a British howitzer.
We've got a far greater spread of shot. Look at that. Now let's have a look at the effect behind. Wow. Although we've only been able to do this demonstration on a very small scale, you can see the effect. The howitzer, with its shrapnel shell, has been able to spread out the fire over more of the enemy, and that gave the Royal Artillery a distinct advantage in defeating Napoleon's army.
Exploding shrapnel had a devastating effect on the French at Hougoumont. It gave Wellington's men the edge because it killed more soldiers over a wider area. But Napoleon had not come to Waterloo to fight at Hougoumont. He had come to decimate the Allies. 80 12-pound cannons were about to blast into the heart of Wellington's line. The main battle was about to begin.
Your mind races. Your body tenses. Staring down the barrel of an AK-47, instinct takes over, and suddenly nothing else matters. Shootout, an all-new series tomorrow at 9 on the History Channel.
At Samuel Adams, we thought we could make a better light beer than anybody else.
Our standard was a light beer without any sacrifice to flavor.
After 2 years and a wagon load of trials, we finally made a full-bodied, flavorful light beer.
When people first tasted it, they had trouble believing it was a light beer.
Sam Adams Light reaches a level of flavor that light beer has never gotten to before.
Yeah, who do you love?
Okay, when we're all done, I'm calling Mom, Mom calls Glenn, Glenn calls Kim.
I'm calling you.
Glenn calls Kim.
Who's calling me?
I'm calling you.
And I'm calling him.
Exactly. Good.
Wait.
What?
We don't have cell phones. I don't have a cell phone.
Actually, I don't have a cell phone either.
This holiday, surprise someone in your family with this amazing LG camera phone with flash and speakerphone and get a second one free. 2 great gifts for 1 great price. Call us, visit us online, or stop by a Verizon Wireless Communications store.
Everyone know who they're calling?
No.
Great.
Verizon Wireless.
Class of '94. Here I come.
When you want to make a good impression, Enterprise Rent-A-Car will pick you up free and get you going in style.
Looking good, Moose.
Pick Enterprise. We'll pick you up.
If you have a cold and high blood pressure, you should know that decongestants in these medicines can raise your blood pressure. So why take them? Take decongestant-free Coricidin HBP, powerful relief that won't raise your blood pressure.
Make the
this December, Shield Truly Remember at the December to Remember sales event, where you'll find the best values of the year on your favorite Lexus vehicles. See your Lexus dealer.
Make a DVD today. Surround yourself in the magic forever. The Sony DVD 403 Handycam camcorder lets you record in Dolby Digital 5.1 channel surround sound. Learn more at sony.com/DVD Handycam. Spread the joy.
Like no other. Sony.
Since I have type 2 diabetes, I try to do what my doctor says.
But her blood sugar is still too high. I exercise whenever I can, but his number still won't come down.
I try to watch what I eat.
But her blood sugar is still not under control.
Even though you diet, exercise, and take your medicine, managing type 2 diabetes can be hard. Adding Avandia can help. Avandia lowers blood sugar. It works differently than other diabetes medicines by helping your body use its own natural insulin better. And Avandia can help maintain blood sugar control.
Avandia may cause fluid retention or swelling, which can make some heart problems worse or lead to heart failure. Avandia is not right for everyone. Talk to your doctor if you have heart failure or liver problems. Blood tests should be used to check for liver problems before starting and while taking Avandia. Avandia may cause weight gain. It may cause low blood sugar when taken with other diabetes medicines and may increase your risk of pregnancy. I got my blood sugar under control. You really did. Could adding Avandia help you?
The Duke of Wellington's forces wanted to achieve the unthinkable, the defeat of Napoleon Bonaparte. Although the French army was larger and more experienced, Wellington's tactics and strong leadership maximized his chances of victory. "80 guns of Napoleon's Grand Battery opened fire. Wellington had no match for these massed cannons, but he did have one weapon that was not part of the French arsenal, the Baker rifle. Could this weapon have given Wellington the edge? On the battlefield, Major Gordon Corrigan visits the Sandpit, a small area in the center of Wellington's line where 200 men of the 95th Rifles were deployed.
Their job was not to stand in the line, but to skirmish. So they're well out in front, sniping, killing officers, killing the people who passed on the tactical orders on the battlefield.
The way they were used was not the only crucial factor in their favor. At a military firing range, marksman John Jenkins demonstrates the capability of the rifle.
The Baker rifle is a good all-round light infantry weapon. What makes this weapon special is that it has an extended range relative to the smoothbore muskets that were in use around the period of Waterloo.
What was it about the design of the British rifle that gave it the edge over the French musket?
The rifle has a grooved barrel that imparts a spin to the bullet. And that means that when the bullet emerges from the muzzle, instead of tumbling about, which gives you inaccuracy in a very short range, it's stabilized in flight, which means it's much more accurate and you can hit a target at a much longer range.
Jenkins fires at targets representing the distances that French soldiers would have been from the British position at Waterloo. The farthest target is at 300 yards, over 4 times the range of a French musket. Jenkins hits the target easily.
Armed with this weapon, the 95th Rifles could engage targets at some considerable distance with relatively precise fire.
The British can start hitting the French long before the French can start hitting the British. And this is not good for French morale at all. If you can kill the enemy's officers and kill his colour bearers, who's left to tell them what to do?
In all, around 4,000 of Wellington's soldiers used the Baker. The weapon's accuracy improved his ability to disrupt Napoleon's command and control on the battlefield and was a factor in giving him the edge over the French. At Hougoumont, the diversionary attack continued. Over 10,000 French had been drawn into the fight, outnumbering the British 5-1. But Napoleon's chain of command was letting him down.
If any battle depended on the ability of the attacker to bring up heavy guns, then it was the battle for Hougoumont.
They haven't got a system of telling Napoleon what's going on, and therefore, although they could have brought artillery through the woods, they never do because they're incompetent.
Was this incompetence preventing the French from taking Hougoumont? Without effective artillery, Napoleon's soldiers lacked the firepower to launch a decisive assault. But they had more men, and the wood to the south provided cover which should have improved their chances of taking this key position. What went wrong?
So we're in the field to the south of the farmhouse, probably about here, in what was the original woodland.
The wood is no longer there, but the team from Salford University have the capability to create virtual tree cover. A copy of an original map reveals the extent of the wood at the time of the battle.
But what we'll do is we'll use the laser to survey a slightly larger area.
I guess it probably died about
3 trees remain at the south side of the complex. Were they there at the time of the battle? Kim Foster and colleague Andy Hamilton take a closer look at the surviving trees.
The circumference of this particular tree came to just over 20 foot, which would put it at roughly 240, 250 years old. And therefore, it would have been a quite substantial tree at the time of Waterloo.
On June 18th, British troops were firing through loopholes, over the wall, and from the windows in the farmhouse. Today, all but one of the windows overlooking the wood has been sealed up. The one remaining window is hidden behind ivy. Inside Hougoumont, the Salford team get a unique perspective. The same view as the soldiers had when they fired into the wood nearly 200 years ago. The laser scan maps the position of the trees which will form the edge of the virtual wood.
So we've got good detail in the garden there. Yeah. And the tree's been picked up fantastically well.
With the team's work complete, they are ready to build the model for expert analysis. By mid-afternoon, the outcome of the battle hung in the balance. As Wellington looked out towards the east, he saw his Prussian allies emerging from the smoke. Blücher had promised Wellington he would fight. The French occupation of Prussia had forged a history of hatred between the two countries. There were old scores to settle.
They sweep through the area that we're standing in now, and they head for the village of Plancenoit over there, and that is well behind Napoleon's lines. So if they get in there, the French are in trouble.
The arrival of the Prussians increased the size of Wellington's force from 70,000 to over 170,000 men, almost twice the size of Napoleon's army.
Napoleon had to pull some of his forces out of the center of the line. His reserve corps had to turn right to meet this Prussian force as it came forward.
French troops were now struggling on 3 fronts: at Hougoumont, in the center of Wellington's line, and with the Prussians on Napoleon's right flank. It was a vital point of the battle, and Napoleon was not even there to witness it.
Behind the most enigmatic smile of all time lies the world of a mysterious genius. Da Vinci, Decoded. Sunday night at 9, 8 Central, as only the History Channel can bring you.
At Samuel Adams, hops are to beer what grapes are to wine. They really are the soul of the beer.
That's why our founder, Jim Cook, goes to Bavaria each year to hand select the best hops in the world. Most other brewers just call in their orders.
Wow, this is gorgeous.
Some customers only drop them and sniff a little bit.
He doesn't sniff, he dives in the hops.
The better the hops are, the more complexity, fullness, and richness you're going to get into each bottle of Samuel Adams.
With Dish Network's everyday low price, you simply get more TV for less. In fact, you could save about $29 a month with Dish Network. That's about $350 a year in savings. So what are you waiting for? Call for Dish Network's everyday low price right now and save about $29 a month. Plus, if you sign up today, you'll get over 60 channels for only $19.99 a month for the first 3 months. And you'll also get HBO, Cinemax, and Showtime free for the first 3 months. Call Dish Network now.
Dish Network. Better TV for all. What does America need right now?
How about an assurance from Dodge?
What would that be?
Gas and scheduled maintenance for 2 years.
A 60,000-mile limited warranty.
Engine, transmission, oil changes. They're all covered.
What does it mean to you?
I can fill up my tank without emptying my wallet.
Scheduled maintenance is taken care of.
Gas, maintenance, warranty.
What else is there?
It's our Miles of Freedom plan. Now till the end of the year, get 2 years of gas and scheduled maintenance and a 5-year or 60,000-mile limited warranty on a great selection of 05 and 06 models. It's all taken care of.
Legendary New Balance technology and performance. Now found in recumbent exercise bikes for the home. Dual-sided foot pedals. Ultra Comfort lumbar mesh seat. Integrated continuous heart rate monitoring. Exclusive features that help bring your life into balance. Call or log on now to find out how you can receive a free Apple iPod when you purchase a select New Balance recumbent bike. Achieve New Balance.
It's the ultimate CD collection for the ultimate fan. Dire Straits and Mark Knopfler, Private Investigations.
We got to install microwave ovens so far away from.
It's the only 2 CD set you can buy with all the best of Dire Straits and Mark Knopfler. Dire Straits and Mark Knopfler, Private Investigations makes a great gift. Click or call now.
Living with genital herpes can be a hassle. Whenever I had an outbreak, it felt like it took days out of my life. But then I talked to my doctor about Valtrex. Just 1 pill a day helped reduce the number of my outbreaks. And now, I've been outbreak-free for nearly a year.
It's a brand new day. In a 1-year clinical study among people with genital herpes who took Valtrex, at 6 months, over half were outbreak-free. After 1 year, a third were outbreak-free.
Now my days are right where they belong.
It's a brand new day. There is no cure for herpes. Even with treatment, it may be possible to spread herpes. Valtrex may not prevent all recurrences. To avoid a potentially serious complication, tell your doctor if your immune system is not normal because of bone marrow or kidney transplant or advanced HIV disease. Common side effects are headache, nausea, and abdominal pain.
Ask your doctor if daily Valtrex is right for you. My days are how I want them, and there's nothing better than that.
It's a brand new day.
Napoleon and Wellington were locked in a brutal, bloody battle. By mid-afternoon, Napoleon was exhausted and he'd left the battlefield.
He goes back to his headquarters and he actually has a sleep during the height of the action. His health was not the best on the 18th of June.
Marshal Ney, one of the Emperor's most experienced commanders, took charge. However, years of fighting in the Napoleonic campaign had taken their toll on Ney, too. His judgment had become questionable, his behavior erratic.
Ney is looking up here. He can't see behind me. He can't see what's going on there. And he thinks the British are retreating.
Wellington's tactics were paying off. He moved his troops back to protect them behind the ridge. At this point, Ney made a crucial mistake.
Ney turns to one of the cavalry brigade commanders and says, "Take the plateau." Ney gets in front of them, draws his sword and says, "En avant."
Cavalry charges were usually supported by artillery fire. They were a highly effective way of breaking the resolve of enemy infantry.
What cavalry really provides to an army is speed, mobility, and shock. Really the ability to drive into a defending enemy to break their ranks, push them back, create chaos and destruction. But cavalry can't do that alone, since it doesn't have the advantage of firepower, which you get from artillery.
Ney did not wait for artillery support. He was desperate to get up the hill and attack what he believed to be the retreating army.
As they got to the top of the ridge, instead of seeing columns of withdrawing troops panicking, running, well, what they see are the British formed up in squares.
Now, the square was the formation that infantry went into when it was threatened by cavalry. So you had men shoulder to shoulder, 4 ranks deep, the front rank kneeling. The French cavalry are suddenly faced with a checkerboard of 13 battalions, each battalion about 400 strong, in square, not moving, ready to receive them.
Did Ney's cavalry stand a chance of breaking them and winning the battle? How do horses react when they charge infantry squares? At a horse training school, cavalry expert Alan Larson is investigating how battle conditions affected the behavior of horses at Waterloo.
The horse in the wild is a herd animal. It's instinctive. And the one thing that is absolutely central to any effective cavalry charge is that mob psychology of the horses that continues to keep them hurling forward. You've got half a ton of man and horse. Now at the gallop, that's a very effective weapon.
How did the landscape of the Waterloo battlefield affect the performance of cavalry?
It was good cavalry country. Gentle slopes for the most part. No rivers, no great forests, no real geographical obstacles in that respect.
Marshal Ney commanded 9,000 cavalrymen. Conditions for cavalry charges were good. Yet Ney's charge failed. Larson brings together a team of experienced cavalrymen to investigate what went wrong.
We're attempting to recreate some of the difficulties that the French cavalry faced as they charged up the hill. The intention of every cavalry unit in the Napoleonic Wars was to deliver the maximum number of men and horses in as tight a line as possible, knee to knee, and to ride over their opponents. We have our Napoleonic cavalrymen. They'll be making their way through here and attacking the square in the far distance.
The hay bales are an equivalent height to the squares at Waterloo, and the spears represent the bayonets that would have defended the soldiers.
You can see that we've got the ground littered here with obstacles which represent dead horses, dead men.
Larson wears a mini camera to record every movement of the charge from a rider's point of view.
Trot, march! Enter march! Hold the line!
The obstacles break up the formation of the cavalry and reduce the horses' speed of approach.
Horsemen were trying to make their way up through an already littered landscape, crowded in between British squares, funneled in between guns, troops. Those thundering cavalry charges, in many cases, end up being delivered at the trot or even the walk.
At slower speeds, there's little chance for the horses to have enough momentum to break the tight formation of soldiers. What would happen if the horses charged the square at a full gallop?
For the second part of the test, we're going to take those obstacles away. We're going to give them almost perfect going, and we're going to see what happens when that line of horsemen hits the square at the other end.
Canter, march!
Larson and his men demonstrate that even with near perfect going, the horses will not break the square. Could the mob psychology of the horses have prevented them from breaking in?
It's not in the nature of most horses to ride physically over human beings, especially if those human beings consist of a 2 or 3 deep rank of ferocious British squaddies shouting oaths and insults and stabbing at you with bayonets.
Unless the squares were broken, Marshal Ney's cavalrymen didn't stand a chance of taking the ridge. And there was a further problem for the French cavalry. Professor Laurent Bock is conducting a soil survey of the battlefield. By comparing soil type on Wellington's Ridge with the French position at the bottom of the valley, Bock wants to understand how conditions on the battlefield affected the horses.
The soil of this position is made of sand, clay, and mainly silt. That means that it's crumbly when drying and sticky when wet.
There was a torrential downpour the night before the battle. With recent rain here, the soil conditions are similar to June 18, 1815.
Even after heavy rain, this Wellington position will dry quicker. The excess of water, of course, will run off on the slope and will accumulate in the little valley.
Bock's samples show that the ground on Wellington's Ridge could recover quickly. How does this soil compare with the French position at the bottom of the valley? Bock moves down the hill to the position where Marshal Ney's cavalry charge would have formed up.
Note that the soil is dark and the gray color is probably due to waterlogging, so an excess of water. I'm thinking alone, so you could imagine what's happened if soldiers and the cavalry cross this field in probably worse conditions, certainly more difficult.
Bock's tests show that soil conditions on the battlefield favored Wellington. But Napoleon had delayed his attack by several hours. He wanted to give the ground a chance to dry out. Would this delay have improved the conditions for the French?
If Napoleon wait for 2 or 3 hours to start the battle, thinking that the soil will be dry, I'm afraid that he did a big mistake. Certainly 3 or 4 days is a minimum.
Napoleon's delay made no difference. The battlefield was a quagmire littered with dead and wounded horses and men. After 12 charges, Ney gave up. There was no way his cavalry was going to break Wellington's army. 7 hours into this epic struggle, and Wellington's men had the upper hand. But this wasn't to last.
You put your body under stress with exercise and just the pace of everyday living. Muscles and joints tighten up. Now you can soothe away tension and fatigue with the Shiatsu massaging cushion from Homedics. The deep kneading action is just like a Shiatsu massage in your own home. In fact,
makes me feel human again.
It's so good that Consumers Digest has given the SPM 200 a Best Buy award.
What does America need right now?
How about an assurance from Dodge?
What would that be?
Gas and scheduled maintenance for 2 years.
A 60,000-mile limited warranty.
Engine, transmission, oil changes. They're all covered.
What does it mean to you?
I can fill up my tank without emptying my wallet.
Scheduled maintenance is taken care of.
Gas, maintenance, warranty.
What else is there?
It's our Miles of Freedom plan. Now till the end of the year, get 2 years of gas and scheduled maintenance and a 5-year or 60,000-mile limited warranty on a great selection of 05 and 06 models. It's all taken care of.
Witness a transformation. Sony SX-RD technology delivers 2 million pixels of red, green, and blue. Twice the pixels of HD as we know it. But that's what makes the new Grand Vega SX-RD a Sony, the world's greatest high-definition television. The transformation continues. Go to sony.com/HDTV.
Like no other, Sony.
What do you want for the holidays this year?
No more overages or roaming charges.
With Sprint Fair and Flexible plans, there are no huge overages or roaming charges, so you can talk when and how you want. You're in control.
Finally, I'm in control. Hey, hold on, wait a minute.
With Sprint Fair and Flexible plans, you control your plan. It doesn't control you. Plans start at $29.99 a month. The best gift givers give Sprint. Available at Sprint or Nextel stores. Sprint, yes you can.
When was the last time you got lucky?
If you have to think about it,
You need to get down to Sam's Town. It's the place to play in Shreveport.
This is Vegas, baby. Louisiana style.
And here, there are 2 rules. Have fun.
And get lucky. So come on down.
Later.
Hi. Could I have a medium latte, please?
Sure.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Where's my latte?
Get everything faster. Sign up for Comcast high-speed internet for just $19.95 a month for 3 months. At ridiculously quick speeds, it's way faster than DSL and dial-up. Sign up today and we'll also include a free self-installation kit. Just call 1-800-COMCAST. Comcast high-speed internet. It's Comcast.
This season, finding great gifts is a snap at shophistorychannel.com. Plus, order now and we'll throw in free shipping. So the gift you choose from thousands of DVDs arrives in plenty of time. Free shipping. It's just one more reason to shophistorychannel.com.
Shootout. Tomorrow on the History Channel.
Marshal Ney's failed cavalry charge was a major blow for Napoleon. But there was a glimmer of hope for the French. They'd achieved a breakthrough by taking the farmhouse of La Haye-Saint near the center of the battlefield. If they took the stronghold of Hougoumont too, they could get behind Wellington's line and attack him from 2 sides. Was this a realistic possibility?
That's the scanner in the foreground, so we should be able to link this scan to the
Back at the University of Salford, the team are putting the finishing touches to the virtual reality model of Hougoumont.
So that's where the wood would have started, but where Kim's going to have to put the wood back effectively.
This model will shed new light on the significance of the battle here. Could holding Hougoumont guarantee victory for Wellington?
So this is just on the top of where the wood is going to be, and we're just going to drop in there various different types of trees.
With the virtual reality model complete, it's time for a trial run.
On the big side like this.
Okay. Former infantryman Jonathan Gillespie Payne has seen active service in the Gulf War, Rwanda, and Bosnia. He has surveyed Hougoumont for evidence of fortifications.
And finally some stereo glasses.
Right, thank you. He's bringing his experience to the Cave automated virtual environment, a state-of-the-art facility that will bring the data collected by the 3D laser back to life. Gillespie Payne wants to understand the reality of the fighting experience for both French and British troops.
I've just entered the woods south of Hougoumont from the French side. Yeah, the French soldiers would have been quite disorientated, I'd have thought, especially with the noise, the smoke, people being shot around them.
The virtual world gives Gillespie Payne a unique insight into the geography of the area. But not only at ground level. He's even able to fly above the tree canopy to assess the terrain.
It's a lot thicker, this wood, than I thought it would be. And there's no way the artillery could have got through. I can see quite clearly how Hougoumont itself was actually a lot closer to the French lines. And so I suppose that would have made the defenders feel quite exposed. But there's a really big fortification for the French to have attacked.
By early evening, the assault on the garrison at Hougoumont was faltering. Gillespie Payne returns to ground level using the model to discover why the French attack was failing.
I can see no cover. It's actually quite frightening. Not a good place for a Frenchman to be. I'm now running towards the south gate. Right now I'm into the crossfire. This is where it's going to be the worst because they're shooting at me from above and from this wall here. I'm really exposed. In fact, I consider myself quite lucky if I hadn't been hit by this stage. I've got a great big door in front of me which I cannot break down. My only real option is that wall there. As I get over that wall, there's going to be infantrymen with bayonets who will try and stick me as I get over.
It's time for Gillespie Payne to see things from a British soldier's point of view. He takes a rare glimpse inside the farmhouse.
I have a very commanding view from here, and I can cover the whole of this killing area with direct fire.
Into the formal garden, he now has the psychological advantage of being behind the wall, a key benefit for the British defenders.
As the day went on, and the more attacks the French made through here, this would have been really demoralizing for them because the ground would have been covered with their dead.
The model reveals that Wellington's men concentrated their fire into the gap between the woods and the walls. 5,000 French soldiers died in this killing ground. It was crucial in winning Hougoumont for the Duke.
The virtual reality model really brings home just how formidable a position it was for the French to have attacked. But as a former soldier, it allows me to get inside the head, if you like, of the soldiers on the ground, and you get a much greater sense of what they went through.
Hougoumont had become a battle within a battle. It was a hopeless assault, draining the French army of men and firepower. Napoleon had one last hope. He had in reserve his most experienced soldiers, the Imperial Guard.
It was the Imperial Guard that Napoleon relied on to be the final reserve committed that would bring the final defeat of an enemy army. And yet at the Battle of Waterloo, Napoleon was in the position that he hadn't been in before, and that was committing the Imperial Guard really out of necessity for survival.
Napoleon's guard struggled up the hill. As they got to the top of the ridge, they were faced with a mass volley of musket fire. They didn't stand a chance.
Wellington knew the moment he saw the Imperial Guard retreat that the battle was his. His demeanor changed completely. He waved his hat in the air. He then orders the army to advance. He knew that he'd beaten the French.
The Battle of Waterloo was over. Wellington's victory was complete.
Napoleon had fought all over Europe, but he had not fought Wellington. He really held Wellington almost in contempt in some ways, and I think truly underestimated what the Duke of Wellington was capable of at Waterloo.
Wellington's choice of battlefield, the way he deployed his troops, and his faith in the Prussians were hugely significant. But holding Hougoumont had made the difference between victory and defeat.
Hougoumont was the key to Waterloo. Wellington himself said afterwards that this was where the battle was won.
Hougoumont did not fall. The Duke's command to hold the position to the very last had paid off and had given him the edge over Napoleon.
At 10 o'clock at night, Wellington and Blucher encountered each other very close to Napoleon's headquarters. This scene was one of absolute carnage. There were 47,000 men dead and wounded. It was the single bloodiest battle of the Napoleonic Wars.
Wellington's moment had come. His military career had reached its climax on the battlefield at Waterloo.
No one else would have stood on that ridge without Wellington. The Prussians wouldn't have come north if it hadn't been Wellington. So the result of Waterloo is very much down to Wellington. It couldn't have happened, in my view, with another commander.
Napoleon had regarded Waterloo as an easy battle, but he'd seriously misjudged his enemy. It was an attitude that not only cost him victory, but spelled the end of his throne and his empire forever.
Her images have been defaced, statues destroyed, and temples demolished. She has been erased from history. But why? Josh Bernstein is on her trail.
The ceiling just collapsed in here, didn't it?
Unraveling the mystery.
This isn't Nefertiti. Where is she?
Of Nefertiti on Digging for the Truth. Next on the History Channel.